Hello my crafty friends, this is Monica from Allsewpetite. Welcome back to my channel. In this tutorial I will walk you through how to make a drawstring backpack. To make this backpack you will need to download the pattern from my website. This is a free pattern that is suitable for a confident beginner. I will leave the link to the pattern and all supplies I used in this tutorial in the description box below. This drawstring backpack features a large zipper pocket on the front, which is as big as the front panel, so you can store quite a lot of belongings here. The back is made from a single piece of fabric, but you could easily add another zipper pocket. On the outside of the backpack you will find a cord that is inserted through the top casing, and when you pull on the cord it will close the opening at the top by gathering the fabric. The cord is also fed through side loops, and to adjust the length you will have to undo the knot and tie it a little bit higher. This way the cord will be shorter, so change it to whatever is more comfortable for you. There is an accent panel at the bottom with some box corners to create depth and more of a flat base. The main compartment is fully lined and it is easily customizable if you prefer additional pockets. This is a very fun and relatively quick project, which could be also a perfect gift for anyone. If you would like to learn how to make this drawstring backpack, then keep on watching. To complete the project, you will need an external fabric, accent fabric, and some fabric for the lining. Today I'm using a waterproof fabric on the external pieces and this red faux leather for the bottom panel. For the lining I am also using a waterproof fabric, but this one is more lightweight than the one I am using on the outside. For the accent fabric I would highly recommend using more sturdy material such as faux leather, cork or vinyl, so it doesn't get damaged as quickly as, for example, quilting cotton, which in turn is great to use as the main external fabric. Saying that, you can absolutely use quilting cotton or similar fabric as an accent, but make sure to apply some woven interfacing to the wrong side of the fabric first. And to add a little bit of structure that is similar to, let's say, faux leather fabric, you might also want to add some fusible fleece or maybe the Decouville light. You will also need number 5 zipper. The length is provided in the sewing instructions. Some sort of cord or a rope. A lighter is good to have on hand to burn the edges of the zipper, especially if you are using a continuous zipper like me today. And depending on the type of the cord or a rope you might use, you might need to burn the ends to stop them from unraveling. Or you might prefer to use glue to seal the ends together. You will need a ruler to take some measurements, your favorite marking tools. Seam ripper is good to have on hand in case if something goes wrong. This is optional, but you might want to add a woven label inside your backpack, or maybe a metal tag on the outside. I also like to use an owl to help me guide the fabric under the sewing foot. You will need pins or clips to hold the fabric together, some scissors and snips. I am going to use a masking tape today to temporarily seal the ends on my cord. Also, double-sided tape might be useful today if you are working with difficult to press fabric. And lastly, you will need something to help you feed the cord through the finished backpack. For this purpose, I will use this loop turner, but you can use a safety pin, wire, chopstick, or anything else. You will need to cut one pocket trim from external fabric, one pocket facing from external fabric, 2 bottom panels from your accent fabric, 1 loop from external fabric, 2 casings from external fabric, one front from external fabric, one back from external fabric, two zipper pockets from your lining fabric, and one front lining and back lining from your lining fabric. Take the loop and on the wrong side of the fabric, draw a line in the center along the longer edges. If you cannot press your fabric, apply some double-sided tape instead. When you are ready, peel off the plastic cover and fold the edges towards the line. Otherwise, take it to the pressing station and press it flat. Now you can take the loop and fold it in half, making sure the wrong sides are facing each other. Line up those folded edges and you can clip them together. If you are at the pressing station, you can press it again to keep it flat. After that, we are going to take this to the machine and stitch on both sides about 2 mm from the edge. Next, you're going to fold the loop in half and cut it to create two smaller pieces, just like that. Then you're going to fold the smaller pieces in half again and clip raw edges together. Now we can baste those raw edges together about 5 mm from the edge. Then you can put your loops aside for later. Take your zipper because we are going to fold the top ends by 90 degrees. So you're going to pinch the zipper tape on one side, just like that. So you are basically folding it onto itself. Then we need to bring that folded edge towards the zipper teeth or a zipper coil, just like that. As you see, this created a 90 degrees corner. So pin that in place. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. After you pinned both sides, make sure the zipper is the same length. Alright, when you are happy with everything, you can baste those folded ends close to the edge on each side. Next, take the external front piece, marking pen and a ruler, because we're going to measure 1.5 cm from the top edge, and mark a little notch inside the seam allowance. Now you can take your zipper and you're going to align that folded edge at that notch. Make sure the zipper is facing down, line up the top edge at the notch, then you can clip the zipper in place. Now we are going to baste the zipper to the front piece. Next, you can take one of the zipper pocket pieces. My lining fabric looks very similar on both sides, so I've marked the wrong side of the fabric with a little cross. So this is the wrong side and this is the right side, which is facing the right side of the front piece. So line it up on all sides and clip it along the side with the zipper. Now you can sew the seam using 7 mm seam allowance. Open the panels and press the seam allowance to one side. Then you can bring them wrong sides together and press the seam flat. When you are ready, you can top stitch along the finished seam. Take the pocket trim and with right side facing down, place it on top. Align the bottom edge at the bottom edge of the front piece and clip it in place along the zipper. When you flip the panel, you can see the folded end of the zipper here, I'll open the zipper so you can see it more clearly. There is a gap between the top edge and the zipper, which should be 1.5 centimeters wide. Alright, now we can take this to the machine and baste the pocket trim close to the edge. When you have the pocket trim basted, you're going to put it aside for now and instead take the other zipper pocket piece and the pocket facing. Place both pieces right sides together and line up the pocket facing along the left side edge. Clip them together, then sew the seam using 1 centimeter seam allowance. When you are ready, open the panels and press the seam allowance towards the pocket facing. Now we can top stitch along the finished seam. Take the front panel and flip it to the other side so you can see the zipper. Now take the zipper pocket and place it on top. The right side of the pocket facing should be facing the zipper, and the zipper pocket pieces should also be right sides together. Line up the pocket facing and clip it to the zipper. Don't worry about the other side. Top pocket will be slightly wider, but we will trim everything in a minute. But first, sew the seam using 7 mm seam allowance. Flip the pocket trim away from the zipper, then you can press the seam allowance in that direction. Now you can top stitch along the seam, but make sure you use the same distance as you did on this side, so your stitching lines are symmetrical on both sides. Now we are ready to trim the excess fabric on this side. To do this, I like to use the back piece as a guide. So place it on top, line it up at the left side and the bottom and top edges. Then you can see how much we need to trim along the right side edge. We can cut it straight away, or if you prefer, draw a line to make sure you cut it straight. Next, clip the front and both zipper pocket pieces together, because we need to baste them around all sides. Then, if you have any excess zipper tail, you can cut it off. Take your bottom panels and place them right sides together. Line them up and clip along the bottom edge. Now you can sew the seam using 1 centimeter seam allowance. Open the panels, then open the seam allowance and, if you can, press it flat. Now top stitch on each side of the seam, but make sure you catch the seam allowance underneath. Place the bottom panel on top of the front with right sides together and line up the bottom edges. We are going to sew the seam using 1 centimeter seam allowance. Once you have that seam stitched, you will open the panels, press the seam allowance towards the bottom panel, then top stitch along the finished seam. Now we are going to repeat the process on this side. So grab the external back piece. If you are using a directional print like me, make sure you line up the bottom edge. So place the back right side facing down, line it up and clip it in place. Then you can sew the seam. Open the panels, press the seam allowance away from the back piece, then you can top stitch along the finished seam. Again, make sure your top stitching is the same distance as you've done on this side. Measure about 2 centimeters from the seam and mark a little notch. Then repeat on the other side. You can do it either on the front or on the back, it doesn't really matter. Now take one of the loop pieces and line it up below the notch. Clip that in place, then clip the other loop on the opposite side. Now we can base the loops about 5 millimeters from the edge. Fold the external panel in half, line up the seams and clip them together. Then continue clipping the front and back pieces on both sides. Sew the seams using 1 centimeter seam allowance. Open the seam allowance and press it flat. Now we're going to create box corners. The easiest way for me is to insert my hand and separate the front and back pieces. Now you can grab the opening, line up the side seam with the seam at the bottom panels and clip them together. From there it should be easier to line up the rest. So clip that in place as well. Then you can box the corner on the other side. When you are ready, you can sew both seams. If you want, you can trim the seam allowance by half, but I will leave it as it is. Take both casing pieces and press 1 centimeter fold on each short side. Then make another 1 centimeter fold after the first one. Make sure both pieces are the same length, then you can take it to the machine and sew all 4 seams about 2 millimeters from the inner edge. Fold the casing in half, wrong sides together. Line up the raw edges and clip them together. Now you can baste the edges inside the seam allowance, but first prepare the other casing. You need to mark a midpoint along the raw edge on both pieces. Then also make sure you have midpoints marked along the top edge of your backpack. To find them, simply line up the side seams. Then, using scissors, you can make a small notch both on the back and front panels. Turn the backpack right side out. Take one casing, and if you are using fabric with directional print, pay attention to it. The easiest way for me is to place the casing in the way it will look like once it is attached to the backpack. When I know which side is the right side, then I can just flip the casing like this, align the midpoints and clip it to the backpack. After that, I can clip the other casing to the other side of my backpack. You will notice that the casing is slightly shorter than the main external pieces, but this is correct. When you are ready, you can baste the casing to the backpack about 5 mm from the edge. Now we are going to assemble the lining. So take the front lining and back lining pieces. I've basted my woven label to one piece. Place them right sides together and align on all sides. Then you can clip them together. We are going to sew the seams using 1 cm seam allowance. On the bottom edge, however, we will need to leave an opening so later we can turn the backpack right side out. I like to draw 2 notches so I don't forget. I already pressed the seam allowance open, and now I can box the corners in the same way we have done before on the external pieces. Take your backpack and with right sides together, place it inside the lining. You need to line up the side seams together and clip them in place. Then continue clipping around the opening. Go to the machine and sew the seam around the top edge using 1 cm seam allowance. Once you have the top seam completed, you can turn the backpack right side out using the opening we left in the lining seam. Press the seam flat, then you can top stitch the backpack around, but don't stitch over the zipper, so I would recommend stitching close to the seam, just above the zipper. Pull the lining out of the backpack, line up the edges where the opening is, and clip them together. We are going to close the opening by sewing close to the edge. Depending on the type of the cord or rope you are using, you might need to seal the ends to stop them from unraveling once cut. I like to use a piece of masking tape to temporarily hold the ends together. This will prevent the ends from becoming loose and unravel beyond this point. When you cut the cord, you can use a glue at the end to keep the strands together. I like to twist it and hold it like this until the glue is dry. Alternatively, you can make a knot at the end. Another option is to use a lighter to burn the fraying ends. Be careful when you choose this option because the cord can easily catch on fire and you might get burned. However, this will only work on a cord or rope made from synthetic fibers. Once cool, you will notice that the ends melted together. You can see that when I try to grab and pull on the strands, they are stuck together at the end. Take one of the cord pieces and whatever tool you might use to feed it through the backpack. I am going to tape one end of my cord to the loop turner. Now, starting here, I will feed the cord through the casing and then going in opposite direction through the other casing. So on one side, the cord is wrapped around the backpack, and on the other side, you have both loose ends. You can make those loose ends even, then feed one end through the loop. Hold both ends and make a large knot to hold them together. You can make the knot lower or higher depending on your needs. Now we can repeat the steps for the other cord, but we need to start on the opposite side. And just like that, your drawstring backpack is completed. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you would like to see more videos like this one, then don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you next time! Stay crafty, friends!